which is obviously using the response to disrespect as abusive.
Yo, what's up? Yo, 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 fam, what's up? Welcome to the room. I know we got the three reactions tonight. We're gonna start it off here. This video I found. I should have found it on TikTok, but I'm lazy. New pod dropped today. Last 5 minutes. It's probably the best 5 minutes, but get through the whole thing. Gav be looping me into doing a long form pod. When I first wanted to do podcasting, I was like, oh man, let's make it like 45 minutes. All right, now this dude got me doing 2-hour pods. Let me see if I can find it today. Let's see. We opened up. We're just talking about our lives, like we prefer to tell false narratives. I'm always of the camp of omission. It's better than having a false narrative. Went into the unspoken rules of being a black man in America. Cam Newton, about halfway in the pod, about 30 minutes into the pod. We yapped a bit today. 32 minutes into the pod, we discuss Cam Newton saying that he cannot be friends with attractive women. And Gav asked the question on whether or not I had any unattractive friends. So I think I said I have friends that I'm not attracted to. But for me, attraction is physical, but it's also intellectual with me. If you're brilliant, I'm attracted to you. As a woman, I forget sometimes I'm from the 90s and it's 2020s. And then we discuss, creating boundaries. When you do have, women in your lives that are married, or if you're married, how do you create those boundaries? Gav did a Grammy review. I didn't chime in too much because I don't really watch award shows. We discussed Andrew Schultz walking back his support of President Trump. Paul George being suspended for 25 games using the mental health excuse. And we wrapped it up with discussing my Super Bowl, which will be November 3rd. My Super Bowl is going to be Election Day. I know Super Bowl is this weekend, but my interest for the country is going to be November 3rd of this year. Then we wrapped it up with Imani, podcaster. He has his own show. He's also on the Joe Budden's network. Discussing on bringing an adult film star to a cookout and whether or not you could date a porn star or a sex worker. So that's where we wrapped it up at today. So we discussed that at the end. So pretty interesting conversation. Today was a good pod, long form. If you're the type to really like to sit down and listen to it, today's pod was definitely that. So that did drop today. It's on Patreon. Anywhere that you get your podcast in, it'll be on YouTube probably end of the week. So that was today's pod. Now, where I'm going to start this, because I know that this typically replays in the Black Dads Club group on Facebook, is I'm going to call it Arguing 101. And one of the biggest issues that I can tell that a lot of brothers have, a lot of people have, but with brothers, when you listen to this right here, I want you to basically imagine yourself having a conversation with a lady, all right? So I'm going to play this because this gives some really, really good tidbits.
Best way to test someone's ability to think abstractly. Make a generalized statement about a group, something factual and based on stats, such as
women initiate the vast majority of divorces, right?
Asian men are shorter on average. Now, what's the response? If they say anything like, not all Asian men are short, or I know a tall Asian guy, you're not dealing with disagreement, you're dealing with reasoning failure, okay? The statement was about averages and not individuals, distributions, not anecdotes. Okay. And psychology calls this concrete thinking. When someone cannot separate population level trends from individual exceptions.
I really feel the need to replay that part back right there, because how many times are you having a conversation and you saying to, you're having a conversation with the audience and you're like, well, I found that this is what women do, right? And then instantly, whatever you just said is minimized, right? Well, I don't know any women that do that. All right, that's not what I do, right? Let's replay that part right there.
Separate population level trends.
Population level trends, right? I'm talking about population level, right? So not just myself. And I go through this a lot on the pod because a lot of times people think I'm telling an individual story, and oftentimes it's an anecdote. I get things sent to me every day, constantly, by ladies and gentlemen, right? All the time. So when I discuss it, I'm not throwing people names out there. I'm not saying like, hey, Mike sent this to me, right? I'm actually just saying, hey, this is something that men are dealing with, right? And instead of people listening to it and saying, okay, well, let me see what men are dealing with, right? Same way, when ladies say, hey, this is something that we're dealing with, right? Like if women were saying men were not paying for dates, right? We couldn't say, well, I pay for dates. Well, you're not listening at that point, right? If women saying, that, hey, every time I go on a date, the guy doesn't have his debit card, right? I would have to listen to that and be like, all right, well, let's get the information on that. I wouldn't minimize it, but listen to what he's saying.
From individual exceptions, they default to personal stories. And this is not insight, it is a lack of abstract reasoning.
Boom.
Okay. And pointing out an exception does not invalidate a trend.
Boom.
It just proves you do not understand how statistics work.
Boom.
This is called ignoring base rates. It's a well-documented cognitive error. Okay. And here's the important part. Once someone collapses a statistical idea into an emotional or anecdotal rebuttal, explaining it doesn't help. Okay.
That's the part that I wanted to play right there. So if you're having a conversation and the first thing that the first response you get is, I don't know anybody like that, or where are you meeting these people at, or, I would never do that, right? Explaining it will not help. In all honesty, if it's not just a conversation for fun, like if it's a conversation to actually exchange ideas, which is what debating is meant for, if that happens, in all honesty, you could just shut the conversation down. It's not going to go anywhere. You're raising your blood pressure for absolutely no reason at all. You might as well get on your phone and play an Apple game with somebody 7 states away.
Okay. They are operating on a different level of thought. You're referring to patterns. They're talking about people they know. Okay, this is different conversations, right? And this is not about being rude or offensive. It's about whether someone can think beyond the literal and understand aggregates. Okay, averages describe tendencies and not guarantees. Exceptions do not disprove the rules. And the moment someone can't grasp that, you've learned that that is exactly how far the conversations will go.
Conversation for all intents and purposes is over at that point. So, and again, I'm doing this because I'm often out. We was out 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and we had our group at the Cigar Lounge, and it was a table behind us. And when I tell you that they almost got into like a knockout, drag out argument, discussing dating, discussing gender wars. It's people that are probably between the ages of, I would say probably 40 to 55, right? They still having these same conversations, the same conversation that are just beating the black community over the head. Well, it's beating the white community over the head too. I don't know if you've been keeping up with Elijah Schaefer, who's a right-wing propaganda spreader, and he's married, and he was basically allegedly banging out some trad wife, right? Some lady that was telling her boyfriend that she was going to wait till she get married before they have sex, and the whole time she's having intercourse. This is right wing propaganda. Okay, this is not me making up a story. This is just what I'm reading on X. But anyway, long story short, right? Their community is having the whole gender war trad wife conversation too. It's not just a black thing, but I often see that when black men are trying to have these conversations, right? Every talking point that they give is basically minimized. And again, what you have to understand is that that's concrete thinking. You, all honesty, can change the conversation. Like, you don't have to be rude. You don't even have to, be mean. You don't have to be like, you're not thinking in a way that you can understand the conversation. You just really just turn the channel. That's it, right? It's like watching your favorite program back in the day when we used to have commercials and you had to watch a program before everybody had HBO and Cinemax, right? You would be like, you know what? While this commercial's on, I'm going to go watch something else. I'm going to turn the channel. And that's really where you have to be in conversations, because if there is not going to be an exchange of ideas, then what are you doing? Like, what's the point of the conversation? Like, what is the point? Especially, and this is going to go to part 2 of what I'm talking about, especially when a lot of the conversation is changing.
More women, she says, are against free speech.
When you ask people, which do you value more, academic freedom, there's no overlap. A vast majority of males choose the pursuit of truth, academic freedom, whatever the cost. The females favor emotional safety and equity.
So what? Both are good qualities.
No, they're not. The university exists for the pursuit of truth.
Men and women, she says, should fight this trend.
It's going to take more parents willing to stand up for their sons who are getting screwed at academic institution after academic institution. It's going to take more CEOs not to be browbeaten by their wives.
By their wives?
Females are overwhelmingly far more left-wing, and they push their husbands to buy into the poison of identity politics.
We have to get gender equality here in the United States. It is imperative, and there are several barriers that hold women back. And we have to really, if we're going to bring women up, we have to invest in things to help them with their power and their influence.
So why is that?
Why are females more left-wing? I can't tell you, but it is absolutely the case.
And here's the thing: I don't have a problem with I don't have a problem with left wing versus right wing. I think that the difference in thought is what makes the world interesting. One of the problems that I am having is when people on the left are in charge, right? They seek to basically infuriate the right. We discussed this briefly on the pod today. Everybody that has a problem with the worship of Donald Trump has clearly forgotten the worship that went on with Barack Obama, right? People crying, right? People buying T-shirts with Barack Obama's face on the front of it, right? That whole deifying of what was going on, right? Well, the right had to endure that. They didn't vote for Barack Obama. That was their president, but they didn't vote for him, right? And then when the flip side comes back, right, what does the right do? They MAGA hats, right? Red, white, blue, everything. It's the exact same behavior on the right as well as the left. One of the things that she's saying here that I really agree with is there has to be a pursuit of truth. And that's what universities was meant for. Universities was meant for pursuit of truth, right? There can be a difference of opinion as long as you understand why you have your opinion, as long as it's not a talking point. Media is playing a huge part in this, right? Media plays a huge part in the propaganda machine, right? There's a propaganda account on TikTok that gives a lot of information on the United States, right? It's coming from a Chinese point of view, right? They're saying it to upbuild China, but you know what? It reveals a lot about the United States. While it's propaganda, it is the search of truth, right? United States does a lot about the same way about China. Al Jazeera, when they first came out, it was a news network that was like, hey, we're going to give the truth about every place in the world except for the Middle East, right? So as long as you understand, the hue or the tint, you can still be in pursuit of truth. One of the things that she's saying here is that a lot of the ladies are anti-truth, right? And that happens a lot more on the left. And I don't disagree with what she's saying here, right? There's a lot of concrete thinking that's going on. There's a lot of, I can see when you messing up, right? MAGA people, but I can't really see when we're messing up. Liberals, right? I can't really understand if we're screwing up as liberals, right? I can't really understand that Barack Obama can do nothing wrong when he's in office, but my God, when Trump gets in office, he can't do nothing right. And I mean, do not get it twisted. I call it the moral mafia all the time, right? But one of the things I will say about Trump is it makes me dislike the Obama administration even more, because y'all clearly could have done more. Y'all clearly could not have given a damn more to get things done for this country. And one of the things we do discuss this in the middle of the pod, not Barack Obama versus MAGA, but the difference of when the other side is in the lead, the side that lost feels that they're not being represented at all. And until we get to the point where we can stop having anecdotal conversations, right? And we can have conversations about what is truth, right? Let's look at the information. Let's look at the data, and let's find out what is true. For years and years, I remember I did not read Marx because of like communism, right? And you know, I was the first time I went to college, I was an economics major, so I love economics. So, and I remember reading Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations. Oh, this is the best book on capitalism that you can possibly read, right? And I read it, and it was all right. I won't say it was trash, but it did not explain the free markets. And I remember many years later, I ended up reading Karl Marx, Critique on Capitalism. Guess what explained capitalism way better than anything else that I've ever read in my life? Karl Marx. Right? He explained capitalism in a way, right? Because it was in pursuit of truth, right? Like his writing it was in pursuit of truth. He explains the proletariat. He explains the factory owner. He explains the hourly wage. He explains unions and why you need collective bargaining, right? Capitalism was never going to do that. It was never going to explain those things, right? So there has to come a point when we have conversations that we can have conversations with people we disagree with. One of the biggest things, I'm gonna play this again. One of the biggest things that she says here.
More women, she says, are against free speech.
When you ask people, which do you value more, academic freedom, there's no overlap. A vast majority of males choose the pursuit of truth, academic freedom, whatever the cost. The females favor emotional safety and equity.
So what? Both are good quality.
Emotional safety and equity. And one of the things, if you understand this, one of the things that you do understand also is the rise of feminism, right? First wave feminism, right? Was anti-emancipation. So the equity that they wanted was the equity which was part of the patriarchy, right? That's the equity that was desired.
Qualities?
No, they're not. The university exists for the pursuit of truth.
Men and women, she says, should fight this trend.
It's going to take more parents willing to stand up for their sons who are getting screwed at academic institution after academic institution. It's going to take more CEOs not to be browbeaten by their wives.
By their wives?
And I wanted to replay it because at this part right here, one of the biggest truths you'll uncover is when you study the rise of feminism, first wave feminism, and you juxtapose it against the patriarchy. One of the biggest things that you'll realize is that the patriarchy does not include all men. But not only does it not include all men, it actually includes the man's mother, his wife, and his daughter, right? So the patriarchy is majorly women, right? So when she says, so they do not get browbeat, right, by the women in their lives, right? This is part of the idea of the patriarchy, right? It's this ideal that equality and safety is a characteristic that typically women look for, while men typically seek truth. Now, I'm gonna get a lot of pushback from that, but I want you to go back to the first video where I said, how many times have you had a conversation where you're trying to say, hey, this is something that I'm experiencing. The guy next to you, like, yeah, I'm experiencing that too. The other guy saying, yeah, I'm experiencing that too, right? And then the ladies that you're having the conversation with is like, yeah, I don't know anybody like that. This is who y'all are choosing, right? Three men could be from three different parts of the world, from three different generations, right? And everything that they just said is minimized into, yeah, I'm gonna use an anecdotal example here, right? I'm gonna have concrete thinking. The two parts that I'm trying to relate here is, one, if you cannot have a conversation, you cannot waste your time trying to have a conversation. But two, understanding that pursuit of truth has to be paramount to what we expect as men, right? Not how we feel, not how we want it to be, but how things actually are. That is our role. That is the one thing that we have to understand. How are things actually? We don't have to live in delusion land. We don't have to be everybody's a 10, right? We don't have to be everybody's fine, right? What we have to say is like, yo, what's the truth here, right? Even if I don't like it, even if I disagree, right? If Democrats were to come back into office and they remove the powers of the executive branch and they put in term limits for the Supreme Court and Congress, they come back and say, hey, we're going to write these laws to actually create equity and equality in this country. Hey, we're actually going to finally, for the love of God, label the Ku Klux Klan as a terrorist organization, right? Like if they finally come in and they do all those things, then I can look at a Donald Trump presidency and say, you know what? That was the best thing that ever happened to this country. Because it doesn't happen without him, right? Doesn't mean that he's a good man, right? Doesn't mean that he need a statue. But it does mean that that dude applied enough pressure to all the pipes for us to find every leak. And if we fix the leaks, well, we don't find those leaks without that pressure being applied. That's seeking truth, right? That's not anecdotally saying, you know what, country been better off if Kamal's president, right? That ship is past. It's gone. It's not going to happen, right? No one has a time machine. But if we look at things for what they are and say, all right, how do we fix those things? That is the position of men. That's the role of men. And unfortunately, I think that's the problem with us as men. I think we're scared. I think we're terrified. I think we're terrified for standing up to people that disagree with us. All of us to a certain extent. Right? Every week we record a pod. And every week I have to watch what I say. Sometimes I do a good job at it. Sometimes I don't. But I have to be willing to either stand on an island by myself if I feel that it's right. If I find information to find out that it's wrong, I have to be willing to go back and backtrack and to say, you know what, that was wrong. And then sometimes I'm just mad early, and I'm like, man, I'm really gonna have to absorb this and hope that it catches up before the press gets too bad. We're gonna wrap this up with Bud Crawford today on the Ryan Clark show. Excuse me, I guess I should call it a pivot.
So anything that she done to me, anything.
So Bud Crawford, one of the greatest boxers of all time, had the mother of his children. Him and the young lady had 6 kids together, and evidently Bud has a outside baby, a child number 7. And 2 things happened in this conversation. I'm going to play it, and then we're going to talk about the 2 things that I saw that happened in this conversation.
That we went through, I'm gonna take it, you know? I'm gonna take it on the chin because that's what men do. If we been 1,000% real, I should have left a long time ago. You know, men stay, women leave. To cover that up, we wasn't even together when I got my other baby mama pregnant. You know, yeah, we was living together and things like that, but we wasn't together. Things happen, like I said, like, not saying that it's cool, not saying it's okay, but men have babies outside of their relationship every day. This is nothing new. That's why I'm like, women too. A lot of people always criticize men of having children outside of their relationship or whatever the case may be, they wives and things like that. But when you see a woman do it, it's all, she.
Hey, real talk, Bud tripping speaking like women just be bringing babies home like that. Women do bring babies home, right? Insane to me, by the way, that you would put a baby on a dude. You know you got cracked in that 48-hour window and you would still put a baby on a dude. Insane to me. But I'm going to say like the vast majority of women do not do this, Bud.
she deserved better, or he wasn't doing this, or he did this to her, or why, and this and that. You don't know why that man stepped out on his wife or his relationship and things like that. You just look on the outside looking in.
Yeah, but obviously it doesn't make it right when either do it.
Right.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter what the people say if people are okaying a woman making that decision and saying and giving her excuses, or for the man, right?
Sure.
It's about the honesty in the relationship. It's about the communication. It's about making the right decisions. For you, even though you were going through those things privately, what made you admit that to the world instead of handling that with, you know, your family and with the women involved?
I love when Ryan Clark realized his wife gonna listen to the show, because then he'll hop in with some weird question. Bud answers it right here.
Because it was already there. Like, I can't just sit there and blatantly disown my son on national TV. You know, like, just think of if you was that boy, 15 years later, they pulling up this clip, and you not claiming me, you disowning me. You know, you gonna be like, damn, Dad? Like, it was like that? Like, you gonna disown me like that on national TV in front of the world?
Hold up. Limitless.
All right, so one of the things that Bud does something here, right? He's doing a little bit of deflection, like, hey, women do it too, right? One, we don't even need that. It doesn't matter what women do when we do stuff as men. One of the things that I wish Bud would just say here is something that we all thinking, right? Like, hey, man, that woman came up with you when you was a nobody, stayed with you all the way through. You got famous, you got popping, you got money. You wanted to get a new chick. Period, point blank, right? I can agree with him that, yeah, should have left years ago, but typically men don't leave. Like, men are loyal. Loyalty is a male trait. I don't know how we got off that loyalty is not a male trait. Like, loyalty is a male trait, because loyalty is staying. Now, if you want to say whether or not men, will hit something else on the side, that's debatable. I'm not gonna sit here and gaslight anybody that if a man have an opportunity to be with a more stunning, more beautiful woman, or a stunning, beautiful woman, not even more, right, that a lot of men would not take that opportunity, especially if there's no repercussions for it. But one of the things that Bud has to be upfront with himself is like, hey, 15 years ago, who knew who Bud Crawford was? You had to really be into boxing to really know who Bud Crawford was. Maybe not 15, maybe 20 years ago. I'd say probably the last 10 years, Bud really came up the ranks. But I don't think men. I'm probably catching a little heat for this. If a woman was with her high school sweetheart and that guy worked 12-hour shifts at a plant, making $12 an hour, and he was taking care of her, and she became an RN, right? And she left that guy working at the plant making $35,000 a year, and she ended up with a surgeon, right? And they moved into the subdivisions, right? She moved from the single wide trailer that the guy that worked 12 hours a day, guy works more, right? She leaves that trailer and she moves into a subdivision to be with the surgeon. Everybody will understand why, right? And everybody would be like, yo, the high school sweetheart loved her, right? Like, he really loved her. But nobody would say, you know what? She's not better off where she's at, right? We'd understand that. And if she left the surgeon to go with the CEO of a Fortune 20 company, right? We also understand that. Like, when it comes to monkey branching, even though it is wrong, we're like, yeah, I kind of get it though, right? Beautiful woman, high school sweetheart, never was gonna make that kind of money. Surgeon was never home. This guy is a CEO of a Fortune 20 company. I get it. We'd be like, I get it. But when men do what Bud is obviously doing or has done. Now, you don't have to put a baby in the woman, Bud. I don't know what's that about. Like, y'all really act like women are ovulating 28 days a month. I don't know what's going on with that. But, when a man says, you know what? This is what I had, and now this is what I can get. All of a sudden, it's really seen as it's seen as more distasteful. Right? And I think there's a conversation around that. We're all thinking it, right? We all like we don't know who this woman is, right? Bud could have had a baby with another woman look just like his wife, who's a beautiful woman. She had 6 kids from one man and raised 6 kids from one man and been with the man from then until now, that's a beautiful thing, right? So that's a beautiful woman. Period, point blank. What Bud decision that he makes going forward, I think this was an opportunity. It would have sounded like a dirtbag move, right? But it would have been the truth. And it goes back to the other two conversations that we had, right? We have to be in the pursuit of truth, right? When we have a conversation, this is where Ryan Clark should have pressed them. It's like, hey, was there a difference between, being with a woman that's been with you when you had nothing to now you have something and now you have access to a more aesthetically pleasing type woman, right? A more exotic, aesthetically pleasing woman. Here's the thing. We don't know who this woman is that Bud Crawford had this outside baby with, right? And let me be clear, I am anti outside babies. I am not a cheater, okay? If I really want another woman, I will tell my existing woman that, like, hey, I like this woman. I think she's pretty. What do you think? Right? And if my wife says no, the answer is no. Right? Because that's what loyalty is about. So I'm not about sneaking. To me, as a man, if I have to sneak, it rubs me the wrong way. Right? But I think this is the opportunity for them to press, like, hey, Bud, did things change when you got money? Like, that was the question there. That question was sitting right there. Like, hey, man, because as someone, as most of us are, right, most of us are going to hit our financial peak in our 40s and 50s, right? That's when most men hit their financial peak, right? That is a question that men could receive an answer for, so we can kind of know, well, what do I need to look out for, right? Because women got it down pat. When it comes to monkey branching, if a woman is with a man and he can bust his butt, he can work 2 jobs, right? But if she has an opportunity for something better, she's going to now look at everything that man does wrong and turn it into a situation that she can say, you know what, this is why I left. And I'm with the man that treats me, quote unquote, treats me better, right? They have it down to a science. They have money, and she can get with that guy, and if she can do better than that to another guy, right? We understand it. We look at it and we like, you know what, Sierra, you had Russ. You had Future, and now you got Russ. And if Byron Allen becomes available, not one person in the world will be like, you know what, she really screwed Russ over. Not one person in the world. Like, even as guys, we'll be like, damn, this kind of messed up for Russ. But we'll be like, but she's with Robert Smith now. She's with Byron Allen or whoever, right? She's with Bill Gates. We'd be like, hey, I get it. So that was an opportunity for me for them to say, hey, yo, was it access to more that made you make this decision? I won't call it a mistake, but it was a decision. He made a decision. He clearly has no problem with saying, like, yo, you ask me on national TV, I'm answering on national TV. So it goes back to the last 2 videos I played, is we always have to be in pursuit of the truth, right? Not what makes us feel good, right? Not a safe place to be, but as men, we should always seek to dig for the truth, right? A confession isn't necessarily the truth most of the time, right? Owning up to something most of the time really isn't the truth, right? That's just a statement, right? When you dig into it, like, hey, what was the reason, right? He said, should have left a long time ago. Man, y'all got 6 kids, bro. Like, you vested. You a pot committed. Like, you did not have to. You still could have had the outside chick. You didn't have to put a baby in her, right? That's an actual conversation. But I get it. Bud has hands, and it's only so much you can push him when he's in front of you. But I definitely would have wished they would have. I really wish they would have kind of pressed them a little bit on that, instead of us just having a generic, like, hey, the relationship was over, got with this other chick, she got pregnant. Like, nah, bro. Like, I need to know how much pressure was the money and this baddie that you ran across. But that's all I got tonight, man. I'm gonna hop off here. Hope y'all enjoyed this 40 minutes. Appreciate y'all tuning in. This does replay on Facebook, so if you go to the Black Dads Club Facebook group, feel free to check this out or share it. Follow me on all platforms. Well, not all platforms. I'm only on Twitter and Instagram at Pastor Mike Will. Appreciate y'all coming in. New pod drops today. Good times, man. Good times. And that's all I got. Hey, Scott, I appreciate that, man. And I'll see you. Ash, saw you come in. Roundtree Films, thank you. Mimi, I saw you in earlier.